Nope. And away we go. It is the nightcap. Right here on BearcatJournal.com. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. Get to the app. They will deliver it to you pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop, or get yourself down to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up. Save yourself 15% off those delicious chicken tenders, chicken dippers, fried chicken, French fries, coleslaw, fried pickles, deviled eggs, the whole 9 yards. So make sure you support those that support us and our good friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. All right, Aaron, let's do this. I thought for a while this was going to be a really fun edition of the nightcap. It didn't turn out that way. Houston 75, Cincinnati 69. It was a 26-9 run over the final 9-10 minutes of the game. Houston had a couple guys that stepped up and made plays. Cincinnati did not. And the end result is a disappointing afternoon. And it's weird. I know people are frustrated, and I get it. Like, people want quad one wins. That's what teams are judged by, quality wins. This team has struggled to pull those off. They've showed in most of those games that they were competitive, that they were close, that they're putting up a hell of a fight, but they haven't been able, outside of that Illinois game last November, haven't been able to put the W's on the board. So I get the frustration.
Sure.
But I didn't. I sensed it a lot more, and maybe you'll agree with me or not. I sensed that I felt that a lot more against Memphis last week than I did today against Houston.
That we weren't able to get over the hump?
That they had no business being down 8 to 10 points the entire game against Memphis.
I agree with that. 1,000%.
It's a team that's as good as Memphis. I'm not ready to say they're better than Memphis, but they're as good as Memphis, and they did not play to that level. They're not as good as Houston for 32, 33 minutes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We need top 10 NBA draft talent. Sure. Absolutely. I would take lottery draft talent.
Sign me up. But when you go Sweet 16, Final Four, Elite 8, guess what? Those guys are a lot more willing to pick your school, which is, yeah.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts of this game, and we're
nuts and bolts, we got screwed.
I mean, there's a case for that, I guess. But,
I'm kidding.
Do you view today as a success?
No, because they didn't win.
I will disagree.
But let me clarify. I think people are too hard and fast about, like, can today be a failure and there still be things that there are to be positive about? I think you can do both of those things.
I guess I just don't think that losing to the number 3 team in the country in the way and fashion that they lost, I don't view it as a failure. Do I think there were certain things especially towards the end of the game that happened that you can pick apart? Wes is going to be kicking himself in the way that he handled the last minute, I think. But I view today largely as a success. I think that we've been waiting to see that this team was moving in the right direction. And I know that it sucks to say that you're keeping up with these types of teams, but I think there's something to be taken away in that you are keeping up with the number 3 team in the nation, that you clearly got under Kelvin. You clearly got under Kelvin Sampson's skin the entire game. I thought his head was going to literally explode on more than one occasion.
So here's the biggest takeaway from me. Remember what I talked about against Memphis last weekend? I didn't feel like they went into that game with any emotion, any swagger, any like we're better than Memphis, we're gonna win this game. I didn't feel that last week. I felt it today. I felt like all the way to the end, they felt like we're gonna win this. We're gonna beat Houston.
I agree. And I thought that this was the toughness that we've been begging to see out of a Bearcats team for 3 years, 4 years, however long it's been. The pandemic screws me up in timeline. So
it's been 4 years, but the first year, that team with Trey, his senior year had toughness, mainly because Trey Scott was on the team.
This was the grittiest I feel like I've seen them fight in a game where the refs, honestly, I think the refs let them play through most of the game.
Yes, I agree.
It wasn't a tit for tat bullshit call. They let a lot of stuff go.
There were only 9 fouls called in the entire first half.
That's bananas. In a
like
very
there was flow.
It was very physical. Yeah, it was a physical first half, but both teams were able to get into their offense, and I think that was honestly what caused Houston more problems than anything. Is they didn't expect Cincinnati to ever get into any type of rhythm, and God, they did.
I mean, 7 of I think the first 9 baskets were on assists. DeJulius had like 6 assists in the middle of the first half. Like the ball was popping. It was finding the open man. The open man was knocking down shots. Like it's what it looks like on air in practice, right? Like this is when you're drawing up your plays and designing your actions.
So I know we talked about South Florida being the best first half that we've seen in God knows how long.
This wasn't close. You
don't think it was close?
No. This was by far the best half that they've played offensively, at least in ages.
I thought you were going to say it wasn't close to the South Florida first half.
No, it was this, and it wasn't close.
Because I felt like they did it on both sides of the floor. It wasn't just offense; it was also defense. You don't think? I think that they were disrupting Houston's defense. They were taking them to the end of it. Houston's not used to being taken to the end of a shot clock, and they looked uncomfortable as shit going to the end of a shot clock. They didn't know what to do with the ball towards the end of a shot
still
clock.
Shot 57% from the floor in the first half.
I still think that was because they disrupted their offense. I think it could have been 75% had they not done that. Houston's really good.
They were 57% is elite, Aaron. Elite, especially when they were only 4 of 12 from 3. So they weren't. It wasn't like they were hot from the outside. They got. Let's see. 22 of their 36 points were at the rim in the first half, in the paint. That's a lot.
Well, if that was elite, Cincinnati shooting 17 of 28 was.
Oh, look on the offensive end, Cincinnati was elite. They just allowed, especially the back end of the half, like the last 10 minutes of the first half, you could tell Houston was getting going. Like they started to feel it.
Until Cincinnati hit that 3 to end the half and deflated the whole balloon.
Kind of. I mean, Houston came out, scored the first 4 points in the second half and cut it to 3.
It doesn't feel good going into your locker room. Like you're mad. You're mad as shit going into your locker room. Like you don't feel good as you would have had Cincinnati Mike Adams-Woods not hit that 3 at midcourt to go into half.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helped. Like, they lost by 6. It would have been worse without that. But I just felt like they allowed, at the back end of that half, Houston's offense to get in some rhythm.
I guess I just didn't feel like that watching it as I did in the second half. The second half was where they fell apart defensively, in my eyes. Even if they shot less. I mean, it was only 14 of 25 in the second half, so they shot 1% less.
Yeah.
Still elite.
And they were only 1 of 5 from 3. The difference being they were 10 of 14 from the line in the second half. That was the main difference in how they were able to, outside of Jarris Walker, just, I don't know what you do.
You can't. It was like, I mean, how do you game plan for Kenyon Martin back in 2000, right? Like, what are you game planning for Kenyon Martin? You can't game plan for Kenyon Martin. He couldn't even step back behind the arc the way that Jarris Walker can. So you have an alien. You literally have an alien that you're trying to game plan for. How do you game plan for an alien? You can't.
He's only had 4 20-point games this year. 2 of them against Cincinnati. Today was his career high 25. Like, the stuff he was hitting in that little spurt where they brought it even in the second half.
As the commentators are talking about how he's not really moving great.
Yeah.
He's clearly, you can see he's hurting.
Lumbering a little bit, yeah.
Where? I didn't see any of that.
Matthew, come on, dude. Like that. Why didn't Houston land a Jarris Walker for the first 9 years that Kelvin Sampson was there? Because it takes time. And they built it up. And then they made a Sweet 16. And then they made a Final Four. And then they made an Elite Eight. And now all of a sudden, more talented players are interested in coming to play for your program because you've got a winning history that's being built.
I will also counter what Matthew's saying here, as he's saying that we need to recruit better talent and all of this. I will say that
everyone agrees.
You've brought in 2 guys between Jizzle and Rayvon in the top 75, top 60, I believe. And you were in on the number 1 guy in the country.
Yeah. Why didn't Mick ever land one? There were some services that had Yancey Gates as a 5-star. Jermaine Lawrence was a 5-star. Lance Stevenson was a 5-star. So he did. And guess what? Mick never made a Final Four here. He only made 1 Sweet 16. So it's apples and anchovies, Matthew. Timeout or no timeout? What do you think? This conversation is Houston goes up 2 with 47 seconds left. UC comes down. They're disorganized early in the possession, clearly.
So that's where I was most upset. I wanted them to go for a quick shot and play for the last shot. I don't know if you felt the same way. I wanted them to go for a quick shot.
And Wes has been a proponent. Like, they have shown that they like to go 2 for 1. I think it's hard against Houston, man.
I think that he was scared that he was going to end up in a situation where he had no timeouts at the end of the game again.
No, I don't think he worries about that.
You don't think that has crept into the back of his mind at all?
No.
Okay. Because that went through my head. And again, I thought he was going to try to go quick shot, play for the last shot, as opposed to
think Houston makes it really hard to do that.
Well, I mean, their defense was stellar in the last 5 minutes of the game, really.
Jermaine Lawrence, go check on Jermaine Lawrence, Matthew. He was a 5-star recruit. I don't know what to tell you. Whether it works out or not, landing a 5-star recruit is a 5-star recruit. And thank you for the super sticker. It's all love. We're just talking some ball. You can't say they never land elite talent, and then you mention the elite talent that they've landed, and the response is, well, it didn't work out. It's still a 5-star guy. And Jermaine Lawrence would have worked out if the people around him weren't. That's another story for another day. So, timeout or not timeout? They were unorganized the first half of that possession, for sure. And I think it felt like he was about to call a timeout. And then the ball got to Dave with 10 or 12 seconds left on the shot clock. Which, if you call a timeout, you're going to run an action to get Dave the ball on the inbounds. So I think when you see that as a coach, you go, okay, we got what we want. I didn't think, and Dave had a great game, so this is not to knock Dave. I didn't think Dave handled that well when he got to the top, reset the offense, and he didn't play downhill. He played sideways, and then he had to just throw it to Vic and hope Vic could do something.
Well, I think we talked on the phone right after the game. This is your take, so I don't mind mentioning it here because I think it makes sense. But what did we see in the last 5 minutes of the game? Sasser running downhill the whole game.
Yeah,
that's where Dave has to run downhill.
Shed.
I'm sorry, Shed.
It wasn't Sasser.
He, by the way, for anybody who watches Twitch, he looks like Speed. Sasser looks like Speed, the Twitch guy. But in any case, yeah, Shed's running downhill the whole last 5 minutes, and that's where we didn't have anybody who can do that. That's where I thought DeJulius could do that. Nolly obviously had the knock knee, and I was shocked when he was back in the game. I thought it was an ACL. I thought he was done for the year.
No, it looked like it was pretty clear that it was just the two knees banged. Sharp,
The freshman.
The freshman was coming in from the 3-point line. Landers was coming in. Now, bad things can happen from that, but there was contact. So I didn't feel as like, I thought he was probably going to be out for the rest of the game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I thought he was going to come right back in like he did. But it looked from the angle that they showed that the two just kind of banged knees as they were both going towards the rim.
For me, it was just the way that he reacted. I was like, oh, God. Oh, no.
Well, but it scares the shit out of you, right?
We're used to having every nice things don't happen in Cincinnati, right?
Well, that's how it happens, right? Like it's always when a guy is like playing out of his mind,
freak
and then
accident.
all of a sudden, bang, it's over.
Everything's taken from you.
I felt
in a blip.
I felt that part.
But yeah, I mean, glad to see he was back in the game. I was shocked. But we don't have a guy that can go downhill the way that Shed could.
No,
I mean,
that's why you recruit Jizzle James. That's why you recruit Davion Thomas.
And to that point, even if it wasn't Shed, it would have been Sasser. It would. They have several guys who can do that.
Right.
And I think that we have a guy that can do that on this roster, actually. That isn't Dave. That isn't Landers. And I think it's Skillings. I just don't know that he can actually finish going downhill. And I think that's why you don't see him currently in these types of situations.
Not yet.
Right.
I think he will be able to. But the thing you worry about with Dan is long and kind of angly, and
he's a baby giraffe. You've said it before. He's a baby giraffe. Yeah. I mean,
and what I mean by that is like in those late game situations, you want a guy that like is kind of tight with the ball, is a little more compact. Like go watch Shed in the last 8 minutes of that game when he was coming off screens, or when he was turning the corner, tight, compact. As soon as he got Dave on his hip, he was in attack mode and then ready to stop on a dime and pull up or finish and go to the rim. Like, it's just not something that there's enough of on this roster. And to your point, it makes it that much harder to guard Shed because Sasser can do it too.
Right.
So whether it's coming from the right or coming from the left, they both can come off that ball screen, go downhill, and put you in trouble instantly, even if you're playing good defense. And I didn't, I've let you guys know multiple times this year when I didn't think the defense played well. I don't think today it was a problem of the defense not playing well. It's just that Houston hit so many tough shots.
And even Davenport, who we've been critical, Twitter's been critical.
He guarded him well. I thought he guarded Walker well.
I thought today was probably the most outstanding game that I have seen him play defensively in his last 2 years. I mean, I don't know that I remember him defensively as a liability prior to the last 2 years where I was looking for that kind of a thing, right? But today I think that he played as well as anybody can play against a lottery pick, right? Like, I mean, what else are you supposed to do on a guy who's hitting fadeaway floaters 30 feet into the air?
30 feet into the air.
He did. The one he hit over Vic. I believe it was over Vic, right?
The rainbow.
It was an anomaly. Like that's a glitch in the matrix. That doesn't make sense. The simulation did not accept that. He beat everything to do that. It doesn't make sense.
It was ridiculous. But they had two guys that carried him across the finish line. And in those final 9-10 minutes, UC scored 9 points. Like, here's the thing, though. I want to have this conversation because it's something that came up on Twitter today. Do you think what happened was considered choking?
I know the conversation you're talking about because I saw you go at somebody's throat about it. I don't believe that it was choking. I believe that, truthfully, the Cincinnati played above with their head over their skis, right? Like I think.
But let's just look at the last 10 minutes, the 26-9 run that the game closed on.
No, I think they were tired.
Choking?
I think they were tired. I think that they don't have the depth that Houston has at the talent level that Houston has. Who were we playing predominantly in the game? We didn't play much Josh. We didn't play much Dan. We didn't play much Rob Finney, who did see some minutes today, by the way.
Good
and
to see him back.
Played very well, especially in one of the first defensive possessions that he was in the game. He caused a disruption, caused a turnover. Well done. We saw limited minutes on Kalu. Odie played, I think, 16.
5 guys played over 30 minutes for UC.
You played your best 5, hoping that got you over. Because you had the lead, you did everything you could to maintain that lead with your best talent on this roster. You didn't have the depth luxury. I don't think it was a I don't know. I don't believe it was a
Here's
collapse.
My take on it.
It wasn't a collapse. They got tired.
In order for me to think you choked, or to say that they choked a game away or they blew a game, whatever, I have to think you didn't play well. I have to think you went from playing really well at a high level, and then all of a sudden you played like crap, and it allowed the other team to win. I don't think that's what happened. I just don't. Like, I didn't see a team that all of a sudden went from playing well to playing like shit.
You were missing one guy, really. One guy.
But even Aaron, when I think of it, like they got a bunch of good shots. They had 3 or 4 rim out. That's not choking.
And if you want to talk about one guy in specific, Davenport, who we've been critical on.
He had 2 go down and out on him.
Man.
And if he hits either one of them, the complexion of the game is different.
The whole last minute is completely different.
Well, because and they had done this the entire game. This is what I was probably most proud of the entire game. They got up 13 in the first half, and Houston continued to make runs at them. And they would get it down to 4, and they would get it down to 6, and then UC would push it back to 11. And like they had an answer every time Houston kept coming at them.
It was a boxing match where the guy that was supposed to win somehow made it into the 15th round and hit somebody with a haymaker to end the game, to end the match. And Cincinnati, unfortunately, just didn't have the killer blow, the last blow, because they played their best 5 the entire game. Even Nolly playing on a bad knee. He wasn't even necessarily expected to play the game. He was game time decision.
And Wes said they didn't think he was going to be able to play. And the kid's a gamer. Like, the kid's tough as nails. And he gutted it out with 24. And looked unstoppable at points.
His best games are with the brightest lights. It's insane. I genuinely hope he sticks around for next year because I think the games are going to be under a much brighter light.
Well, and that's if he sticks around for next year, maybe that's the alpha that you've been looking for, right? Because it takes, we talked about it, it takes some time to become that. You don't, very rarely does anybody just walk on campus day one
and get to be a leader. Yeah.
And get to be a leader. Yeah.
But if you, I don't want to get it too ahead of myself. I could talk about next year for another half hour, but
we're going to have plenty of time to do that.
I get it. So we haven't picked apart anybody's games. I think is there anything else you want to talk about the actual game? I mean,
I stand firm in, like, if I'm going to say a team choked or a team blew it, I have to think that they played poorly. And I don't think it was that Cincinnati played poorly. I think it was that Houston played those final 9 minutes like a top 3 team in the country. They played those final 9 minutes like a team rated number 7 in KenPom in offensive efficiency and number 5 in defensive efficiency. Like, that's what they look like in those final 10 minutes.
I couldn't believe that Cincinnati has not beaten a top 5 team in 60 years.
No.
On the road. On the road.
On the road, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Beating top 5 teams on the road is, one, rare because you very rarely get to play a top 5 team on the road.
You've not been in a conference that gives you that luxury.
Allows that, right. Yeah. And 2, wait a minute. Wasn't that Louisville team with Russ Smith a top 5 team when they
Did we play them? Did we play them at Louisville?
They won at Louisville in 2012. The SK
that was just a stat they gave on the broadcast.
J.R. Smith. That maybe at that point in the season they weren't in the top 5. They ended up winning. I think they didn't. No, UConn won the championship that year. Louisville won it the next year. But that was the J.R. Smith, or not J.R. Smith, but Russ Smith game. Russ Smith and Sean Kilpatrick going back and forth, and then they played at Cincinnati, and Russ Smith hit the shot with 10 seconds left or whatever. The problem with calling a timeout at the under 8 there was it would have left them with 1 timeout, because you take 3 into the second half, and Wes called one right after the 4-0 start to the second half. You take one at the under 8, you got 1 timeout for the final 8 minutes. That's a risk, a big risk. Somebody agrees with Aaron. I feel sorry for you, Holly. Houston made tough shots. Yeah, Houston's got better players. Better players make better shots. That's why they're better players. Like, that's why Cincinnati is trying to upgrade their roster. That's why they go out and get 2 top 50 level recruits. It's why you're trying to get the number 1 JUCO guard in the country. It's why you're trying to get potentially one of the best big men in the country. Like, that's, yeah. You answer what Houston did by having better players. I don't understand why Dan barely played and Hensley simply doesn't play anymore.
You played your best players trying to win this game.
Were you taking out Dave, or were you taking out Landers to put Dan in for extended minutes? Because if you go look, when you took Dave and Landers, either one off the floor, Houston inevitably went on a run. The thing that's really tough for freshmen against Houston, and this has always been for 30 years, this is what it was like playing against Cincinnati. That's the other thing I wanted to get to. This was playing against 30 years of Cincinnati teams tonight. Because what happened? The final 5 minutes, Houston choked them out. And we talk about that all the time, about those Huggins teams and those Mick teams. The final 5 minutes of games, no matter what was happening, they choked you out. And they put you in a position where you just couldn't score enough to keep up. And that's what Houston did today. It's really hard playing freshmen against Houston, because Dan and Josh are going to be very, very, very good. But those are grown-ass men. And it's very hard to ask a kid to play basketball against a grown-ass man. And Hensley, I don't know where the minutes are right now.
He hasn't played in 7 games.
Yeah, I don't know, where do the minutes come from for him? And I know everybody's going to say don't play JD. JD's giving you more right now than Jared Hensley could give you.
He didn't play a bad game today.
No.
His shot selection was incredible, I thought, today. He passed the ball so well today. There was one where I couldn't believe
he normally shoots. Yeah,
within 8 feet from the rim, and he kicks it out to Micah, I believe, on that one. And Micah missed a terrible 3-pointer. But the pass itself was excellent. It was the most unselfish I feel like I've ever seen him play on that specific pass. And or maybe it was the pass. Maybe that was the pass to Vic for a dunk.
There was a couple. He had a couple nice. I mean, he moved the ball. He was doing exactly what they needed from him.
He's playing into the offense. I feel like over the course of the last 3, 4, 5 games, it's been a trajectory this way in the way that he's playing into the offense. It didn't start well, but it's getting there to where he's playing more and more unselfish. Wes knows that he's a guy who has never seen a shot he didn't like. But
Correct.
today, when he was behind the arc, it was always catch and shoot. It wasn't trying to step over or do the fadeaway or lean or any of that. I thought it was just pure catch and shoot.
Yep.
And I wasn't upset with any of his shot selection today, personally.
I wasn't really either. Let's go ahead. You wanted to take us down a road?
Yeah. I just want to start with, we usually try and break down each guy individually. I think we pretty much just did JD, so I don't know that we necessarily need to go back down Jeremiah Davenport unless you have anything else to add there.
No. If those 2 threes that went in and out connect, Cincinnati wins the game.
Man.
Because it would have stemmed the tide. It would have kind of took some air out of Houston's sails as they were making all those tough shots.
They were open shots. They weren't forced shots. Trying to play hero ball.
Great looks.
Yes. So I was happy with all of that.
Let me say this, Holly, and I agree. JD brought some of it on himself early in the year by trying to do too much. And like we talked about at the time, I didn't think it was out of a bad place. I think he was trying to do everything he felt he could to help his team. Everyone
wanted the same thing. We all had the same goals.
Right. Now he's doing exactly what people have wanted from him. He's doing that a lot more consistently. And he deserves praise for that. The people that still whine and bitch every time he shoots the ball, if he takes a good shot, you live and die with whether it goes in. You've got to have more than 2 or 3 guys that can score. You have to.
All right, so just a quick rundown on some of the bench guys real fast. Kalu played 1 minute. In that 1 minute, he had a crucial board that led to a huge 3 by Micah Adams-Woods. Well done. And that's how the first half ended.
Yeah.
Rob Finney, we already talked about. He had his very first possession that I at least recognize him in the game.
It was his second possession in the game. He had a good defensive stop that forced the turnover.
Correct. That was, I don't know that there's more to say about Rob, but welcome back.
He played 4 minutes. I think as he gets up to that point where he can play 10, 12 minutes a game, maybe a little bit more. And you wonder, are we at a point where Micah is either A, wearing down, or B, teams are adjusting the scouting report on him to make him less efficient than he was to start the season?
Either way, it doesn't hurt to have another point guard in the chamber.
Right. Now you hope you can get Rob back up to speed where Micah's maybe asked to do a little bit less.
You also hope that Rob can make a shot. I want to see him be not necessarily a killer offensively. I don't ever expect that from him. But I'd like to see him not be afraid to shoot a ball if he's wide open. Yeah. Not be afraid to drive the lane if the lane is there.
And I think that's especially tough. Like we saw this from him at the beginning of the year where he didn't want to upset the balance of when he was on the floor. Yeah. You wonder coming back off an injury, is he going to go through that again?
All over again.
You hope not. Yeah. You hope not.
Josh and Dan both played 5 minutes each. I'm not sure that there's much to be said about either of them in this game.
They weren't. Again, it's 2 freshmen playing against grown men.
Well, but
it's tough. It's tough.
2 freshmen that aren't Jarris Walker.
Well, they're not lottery pick freshmen.
Correct.
There's a big difference between a top 5 freshman and a top 100 freshman.
You saw the gap. It was very clear.
Yeah. They will get there. It's not there yet.
And then the guy with the next amount of minutes, Odie. Odie played, I thought today, the 16 minutes that he played, I thought were well played.
He had 2 offensive rebounds, 4 boards overall. He had 3 turnovers, 2 of them on bad screens. The last one I thought was a terrible call. I didn't like the way that the call was called at all. He stood his ground. The guy ran into him overly aggressively.
Arms up.
No, it was a screen.
Oh, maybe that was the foul before. Okay.
It's a screen, and he gets hit and kind of like falls back a little bit, and they call the foul on him. I didn't like that one for as physical. What do we talk about a lot? Adjusting, and it's another thing I wanted to get to earlier that I forgot. Adjusting to how the game was called. I thought they did that exceptionally well today. The game was called loose.
You could armbar. You could armbar. You couldn't go full five to the face on the push off with the guy as the guy with the ball. And Kelvin apparently didn't understand that at all. Why can't my guy push him with a full stiff arm?
The general rule on that is if your elbow locks, you're going to get called. If you just give it one of these, they're not going to call it. But as soon as that elbow pops and locks into place, you're going to get called. I thought UC adjusted really well to the way that the game was called. They were allowed to bang, and they banged.
It almost felt, for the first time, I feel like in a very long time, that the refs adjusted their calls to what UC was doing. And I don't know if that's...
No, I think it was a good crew that they called the game one way the entire game, and...
I guess it just felt like Cincinnati had a step ahead of Houston. Maybe it's because Houston plays that much more physical than Cincinnati does.
Yeah.
But it just felt like Cincinnati always had a step on where the officiating crew was going with the game.
I don't think, and this could be Houston's won 8 in a row, 9 of the last 10, whatever it is.
Well, they dropped one two games ago to Temple.
Against Cincinnati.
Okay.
I think Houston has gotten comfortable knowing that they were going to physically dominate Cincinnati. And today, when Cincinnati said no, I think that caught Houston by surprise. I'm not dealing with that shit. I'm just not.
All right. As long as you just muted. That's what I was hoping you did. Okay.
Jarris Walker is above average at basketball. That's a correct take. I don't even know what you do. Like what somebody on the board was like, maybe they could have brought Kalu in to defend him. I'm like,
nah.
Okay. Like, sure, try, like, whatever. Like, I'm not against, like, the suggestion of trying something different, but...
Again, I think it goes back to even when Vic was on him. Like, he's shooting...
They put Landers on him.
Shooting... Woo!
They put Odie on him. They put JD on him. They ran 4 different guys at him. And it didn't matter one damn bit. He hit threes early in the game, which that really makes things so much more difficult when he makes you respect that he can bang 2 threes.
Because he's 40% on the season, 35%, somewhere in there.
He's a good 3-point shooter. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but he's like, for a guy of his stature, yeah, like if he can step out and hit threes, you're in big trouble. And then he played off of that. Like you had to come out and guard him.
But it still didn't matter until the last 5 minutes of the game that he was doing any of this, because Cincinnati still found ways to answer.
Yeah,
all game until everyone was tired. Because Chad, this is the first time all game that any of these guys have played these minutes.
It's way up there. I think the Arizona game was pretty close, but you had a little bit more distribution because you had Rob fully in the rotation at that point in time. Like it spread it out a little bit. But it's up there. It's definitely up there with you had your 5 main guys, and Jeremiah comes off the bench.
You aren't remembering this game well at all.
Really?
Landers had 33. Vic had 19. Micah had 25. JD had 26. DeJulius had 33. Reed had 8. Skillings had 11. Finney had 15. Odie had 12. Kalu had 9. Hensley had 8. CJ Anthony had 1.
So Hensley and Kalu and Rob changed that math more than I thought, more than I remembered. They were playing 9-10 pretty comfortably at that point.
They've not run a rotation like this the entire season.
Yeah, I mean it was a 5-man rotation with a little bit of variance. Yeah, a little bit of variance. I'm not comparing him to LeBron James, David. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it.
But he's really good.
But in terms of, and I get what you're saying, that's it. His body is like, when LeBron James was in his first year in the NBA, his body didn't look a whole lot different than what Jarris Walker's body looked like. Jarris Walker doesn't pass and handle and do the things that LeBron does, but yeah, it was an impressive performance. And then you had Jamal Shed that just played off of him. And when Cincinnati kind of tried to shift things to focus on Walker, Shed took control for about a 3 or 4 minute stretch there, got downhill, drew fouls, got to the line, made a couple tough shots. So they had that 1-2 punch over the final 10 minutes that when Landers kind of cooled off, Cincinnati didn't have really anything else. And that's where it gets tough for Dave. I just think against some of these teams for Dave, the length and they're running 2 guys at him. He did a great job early punishing them for that. I didn't think he did a good enough job
in the second half.
that middle second half where the run came, where they tied it back up. Then
let's talk a little bit more about Dave. He goes 6 of 13, 2 of 3 from 3, ends up with 3 rebounds, 9 assists, and I think the assists, I don't know how many he had at halftime. I'm not sure if you have that stat or not.
Yeah, I can grab it real quick. He had 7 at half.
So he only ends up with 2 in the second half. 2 steals total for the game, 14 points. How many points do you have in the first half? The majority, I would think.
11.
So 11 of his 14 happened in the first half. Dave,
11 points, 7 assists, and he ends at 3 points and 2 assists in the second half. Whatever they did to kind of change the coverage on Dave worked.
And when you couple that with the guard play that we saw out of Micah all game, he goes 1 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3 for the game, 1 rebound for the game, 2 assists, 3 points, 4 fouls. That's not going to cut it in the second half from your guard play, period.
Right. I mean, combined second half, DeJulius and Adams Woods had 3 points on 1 of 9 shooting. The only basket was the 3 from Dave that tied it up at 69. Nice.
Well, it's almost like the moment bit Micah when he could have just that 3 from the corner would have been just as big as either of Jeremiah Davenport's 2 threes, because it would have squashed a run. And he, again, for the second time in 2 games, hits the side of the backboard.
Yeah. That wasn't
not ideal. Not ideal. What side are you looking up?
It was the minute 55 left, down 3.
When he took that 3 from the corner?
Yeah.
What does that do to the score?
Well, nothing, because then Shed missed a jumper, and then that's when Dave came down and tied it up at 69. But if you tie it up at 69 there,
would have tied the game, and Dave takes you into the lead.
Potentially. I mean, that's not ever how it works, but
sure.
Yeah. I don't see Micah playing with the same confidence he had 2 weeks ago.
It's frustrating as a fan.
Yeah, but it's
ebbs and flows.
He is, right? Like, well, it's the ebbs and flows of a player that is
the water's leveling out.
Right. That he's not Landers Nolly. Like, that's not saying anything to disparage Micah Adams Woods. He's a little bit down here. So you're going to have higher peaks and lower valleys than a Landers that's almost always up here and then might have a bad game, but pretty quickly, especially when the bright lights turn on, jumps back up. So, but, and that's the thing though, right, Aaron? Because with Houston, Sasser didn't have a great game.
No. They disrupted Sasser for sure. Which
Sasser was 3 of 8 from the floor. He was only 1 of 3 from 3. He had 9 points.
Dave's defense on him, especially in the first half, threw him completely out of rhythm.
Right.
And I think that ruined his whole night.
So, but when you're Houston, what happens?
You adjust.
Jamal Shedd says,
you got another guy.
I got this.
Cincinnati didn't have another guy because when both of those guys are off, no one's picking up the other unless it's DeJulius. Basically, DeJulius is not allowed to have an off night as far as guard play goes.
Right.
Otherwise, you end up here.
Right.
Did want to finish the night in talking about players though with on the uptick. So you choose if we're going to talk about Vic first or if we're going to talk about Landers first.
We'll go Vic. Landers had the bigger game. We'll go Vic first.
I thought Vic had the better game.
I disagree.
That's fair.
I disagree.
Vic came up clutch in the boards at opportune times. I don't think
Landers
that was
had more rebounds.
It wasn't goaltending.
It was not. The ball was coming off the rim.
I don't know what the referee crew saw that I could not see.
Technically, if any point of the ball is still like inside the rim, technically it's supposed to be a goaltend. But that ball was out of the. It was never touching the rim again.
It was 2/3 out.
Yeah, it was never touching the rim again.
No shot.
I agree. It was not a goaltend. It should have been a good basket. It wouldn't have changed. I don't think it would have changed.
Let me ask you this. If he goes and catches that ball and brings it back and dunks it in a putback dunk style, as opposed to just tipping it in, does that change the way that whole play is viewed?
Maybe it changes the optics, like on review, because it would have been reviewed either way. Maybe it changes the optics of like where you know what I mean? Like your brain tricks you.
I don't even know if it's reviewed at that point.
Maybe. I don't think it should have been.
I think this happens roughly once or twice a game where somebody has a putback dunk. In games that have putback dunks, they're not. I won't say they're common.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they're often any more outside of the cup than what it was today. I don't think that was.
It was on its way. It was clearly out. Like it was clearly. It's any chance that ball was going to touch the rim was 0.0%. The ball did not. It was a rebound for me, but whatever.
But I thought Vic did really well against Jarris when called upon. I thought he did really well in the paint. He finishes again with double digits with 15 points. Stays out of foul trouble against a very physical team that I'm sure Kelvin Sampson was trying to goat him into.
Get him in foul trouble, sure.
Emotions the entire game. Why wouldn't you? You would not be doing your job as a head coach if any of Cincinnati's opponents for the rest of the season were not trying to goat him. But he played really well in that sense. Only one turnover on the day, 3 blocks, 1 steal. He had a couple chances at a couple other steals where he was just a tad out of position. But I love his movement. I love his energy. And every single game, I feel like there's just – it makes my heart sore that –
getting progressively better.
It makes my heart sore that he is one of the leftovers from Brandon's first class and that we didn't know what we had in this unicorn that has turned into Victor Lakhin.
Yeah. He's been outstanding and he's getting better. Like you can see him actively, progressively getting better week by week, week over week. He's fouling less. He's being more consistent with his effort. He's being more consistent with his awareness, where he's supposed to be, what he's supposed to do. Yeah.
The flushes the 2-hand flushes that he had in the game several different times in situations that they're deflating for the other team. It seemed to me like I don't recall a player that we've seen escalate game over game, week over week, like Vic has.
It's been a while.
I don't know when.
Trey Scott.
I figured it was either Gary or Trey, but
Gary was really good from from the jump. Like Gary started his first game. There's only two, I think 2 games, maybe 3 that Gary Clark didn't start at UC.
I didn't know that.
Senior night, he would sit so one of the seniors could start. He started every other game. So he did. I just say Gary out because yes, he progressively got better, but he started really good.
I guess the difference between him and like Gary as opposed to like Trey is just the energy was different. Gary's energy was not what Vic's energy is. Vic wears his heart on his sleeve in a way that I don't recall.
Gary almost always had kind of a stone face.
Yeah. Jaren, I think, had probably emotionally is the closest player that we've seen to Vic. Emotionally.
Jaren always kind of had a stone face. Like,
oh, I thought Jaren was always either mad or.
Well, that was Jaren's default look was mad. How many times you see Jaren?
But I felt like you were always trying to goat him emotionally as well, in the same way that they're trying to do with Vic.
Yeah,
Vic doesn't smile very much on the floor.
Jaren had a short temper.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm comparing.
Okay,
to Vic.
Sometimes we just got to talk through it, and then I get to where you're.
Look,
the only reason
been having some nightcaps.
The only reason I don't like when you first said it with Jaren just always looked like this.
It was just that you were always trying to goat him into foul trouble via his emotions, and you could see the tipping points.
Yeah, Titus Rubles. God, I love Titus. I need to track down Titus and get Titus on a show one night. I think we could get some stories out of Titus that would probably get me in trouble.
Well, it's probably a good thing that Nick's no longer here.
Yeah, we could probably get. Yeah, I probably won't get in trouble because Nick's already gone, and I need to track down.
And we're out of the statute of limitations.
Yeah, I need to track down Titus for a BBP one night to get some stories of yesteryear. I love that kid. God, he was great. I loved him. But yeah, Vic's trajectory is straight up. Like, keep working, keep doing what he's doing, and he has a chance to be right up there with some of the best big men in program history because he's already climbing that ladder real quick. And I think technically he's got 3 more years of eligibility. Like, he probably will only use 1 or 2 after this year. But and he's done it this year, man. He was good against Arizona. He's good against X. He's good against Houston. Like, when the stakes have been high,
he's answered the bell.
Well. Yeah,
he's absolutely answered the bell.
He mentioned that Justin had an article yesterday or the day before with some quotes from Vic that said, "Look, man, we went to Maui and I played right there with some of the best big men in the country. Like, it gave me the confidence to know, I belong and I can be a big time player at this level."
All right, so you have Landers as your MVP of the night. Take the mic, man.
Just when he's like that, when he's got that big game stage, and like, I think that's what frustrates you about him and can frustrate me at times about him. When it's not the bright lights,
when it's NKU,
he can dial it down, right? He can not be what you want him to be. And then he goes out there in these big games, and man, once he gets cooking, he is unstoppable as a scorer.
Unless you take out his knee.
The guy didn't try to take out his knee.
I know he didn't try to. I'm just saying, when that happened, I think he was playing a bit more gingerly than he was the rest of the game prior to.
Yeah, Houston did a good job. After he hit his 6-3 with like 11 minutes left, Houston was like, enough of this shit. Because, like, if you watched, UC was running him baseline, runner, double screens, down screens. Like, they were doing everything.
His pump fake is everything. The laziest, just, nope. I'm going to step here, though. Sasser was so mad when he went flying.
The 6th one? Yeah.
God, he went flying past, and he just...
Yeah. I just love watching him offensively because not only as a scorer, like, look, he's a better Jaren in the sense offensively. He's a better natural 3-level scorer than Jaren was. Jaren was better. Where I would give Jaren the advantage,
down low, going directly to the hoop,
drawing contact.
Okay.
So that it's right in line with what you're saying. Like, it also got Jaren. He probably had more charge calls than any player in UC program history. He did on the pump fake and then the sidestep. Yeah. Well, everybody at Houston just stopped. Like, fuck.
And everybody at home is like, yeah. We knew it was going, right?
Right.
As soon as he does it, you know it's going.
As a pure 3-level scorer, I would give the edge to Landers. He's right there as a passer. He's
better shooter
from beyond he's a better shooter by far. It's shooting over 50% in American Conference play. And he was 6 of 8. He was shooting 50% coming into the game today and shot 6 of 8 from 3 today.
Matthew, I'm borderline jealous that you were there. I'd be far more jealous if
they won.
Had won. By the way, I took Cincinnati prior to the game. $5 on money line plus 750. It would have paid out. Again, I don't bet big. I'm just out here making small bets just to make it interesting. Would have paid out.
Give yourself a little juice in the game.
Would have paid out $42 if I had won. So I'm riding this the whole game like, let's go. But it was all for naught. Yeah. I mean, as far as the injury goes with Landers, anything do you think we have to be concerned about going forward from what you saw?
On the left knee, yes. I mean, that's the one that was bothering him coming into the game. That was a result of, I think, just you're getting to a point in the year where he's played a lot of minutes. He's got a little fatigue in his left knee. And the right knee, I think it was just a bang knee. If it was anything serious on the right knee, Bob would not have okayed put him back in the game. So the left one, you're going to have to keep an eye on. If it was knowing Landers, if it was bad enough that he missed practice for 2 days, that dude doesn't miss practice. He hasn't missed a practice since he got here.
Good to know.
Hasn't missed a workout since he got here. So what he loves to do is play basketball. And if he had to sit out 2 days of practice, there's something with that left knee that at least bears monitoring, right?
This is an interesting take, and curious to know your thoughts.
Steven Chenault, love you, Steve. Thanks as always for being around. Hot take is we should all hope Landers excels the rest of the year and goes league because that would establish a path for another kid. Selfishly, this team needs Landers and Ollie in the Big 12.
Selfishly, I'm already picturing him and Jizzle and Rayvon and maybe Mike Adams Woods comes back and Vic and Josh and Skillings and whoever else they may throw in here. Jizzle. I think I mentioned Jizzle.
Yeah, you would be looking for a Badunga of a season to open the Big 12.
I like it the way that his Badunga dunk dunks.
So maybe he has a great finish to this year. He comes back next year and is like first team all Big 12. And then he's a draft pick after next year.
Or maybe that's a story for another day.
You never know. See what you did there. But Landers had it all going. He finishes this game 24 points, 9 of 14 from the floor, 6 of 10 from 3, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, only 1 turnover, 35 minutes. Like all that you could possibly ask for from your number one option. Landers had that going today.
I think I'd like to see a little bit more out of him defensively to where he's maybe causing havoc in passing lanes. Like as good a passer as he is. And there were some passes. again today, there were some passes, at least one in particular, where it was such a good pass that whoever was there on the other end, I can't remember. I think it was Vic. It was either Vic or maybe Odie. Just wasn't there for the pass because it was too good of a pass.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see him on the other end.
I just don't think he is an explosive athlete like that. Like that's kind of, you're talking essentially about being a cornerback and like jumping,
telegraphing passes. Yeah.
It takes some serious explosion to be able to do that. I also wanted to give a shit ton of credit. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say Vic does this. I feel like at least once or twice a game.
Vic's hands for a big man are elite. It's not his athleticism though. It's his hands.
Well, you're making the case that he's not explosive enough. Landers, he doesn't have fast hands.
Vic is a lot longer than Landers,
and maybe they're not giving Vic the credit that is due because they're not used to a big being able to get to the spots that Vic can get to. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's it. But
Vic's a better athlete than you think.
I want to see Landers excel as the athlete that I think he is. Is my point.
Yeah, I just don't know defensively that lateral, he's going to jump into a passing lane as much as some other guys.
All right.
That's all. That's not to knock his athleticism.
No, I think I'm trying to be critical of a guy that I want to be the best guy on the team.
I know.
In every facet.
You have to give this team a shit ton of credit after that first meeting with Houston, where they were just throwing passes for touchdowns. Like Houston was just I think there was 5.
They learned 6. A lot in 2 weeks.
Yeah. They only turned it over 9 times. Cincinnati only turned it over 2 times in the second half. Houston only turned it over 3 times in the second half. That was a game with 17 turnovers combined. I think Cincinnati had 17 turnovers the first game against Houston. And Houston had 20 points off of turnovers. Houston only had 13 points off turnovers. Cincinnati had 15. So Cincinnati got them in points off turnovers. They got them in second chance points, 15-8. The biggest area of domination, and this is going into next year, this is the thing that probably, I think if you go back and watch all of these higher level games that UC has played, they're getting beat bad points in the paint. It was 42-28 points in the paint.
That'll do it.
Houston dominated that facet of the game. All right, there you go.
A game that I didn't expect us to have nearly this much to say. We didn't do really a preview on it because I don't think either of us saw this game going this way.
I mean, I would, if you told me they lost by 6, I wouldn't have been shocked. If you told me they led for
the majority of the game,
Cincinnati led for 31 minutes, Houston led for 5.
Man,
if you'd have told me that, we probably would have talked more about it Thursday night. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. That's the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearGutJournal.com.
See ya!